Distortion filters. Hi guys, today's lesson will be devoted to a group of distortion filters, which we'll use to create various interesting effects. Before we start talking about filters that allow you to create various distortions, I want to tell you about one very important setting, which is called Convert for Smart Filters. In the case when you use the Convert for Smart Filters option, you can at any time go back to the filter you were working with and adjust its settings. This is similar to the adjustment layers. So let's apply this operation. We agree, and we have an icon, like this, on the layer icon. A whole section will be devoted to the smart object in more detail. In this lesson, we'll just talk about one of the smart object options. There is another way to convert a layer into smart object. Let me explain. You can right-click and select Convert to Smart Object. It will be the same. And let's move on now to the distortion filters. Let's open the filter gallery. We had a distortion section here, but there were only 3 filters in it. So I have the last diffuse glow filter turned on. And here is the one we used for this group. There is also ocean ripple here, which looks like this. And you can change them. And there is a glass. You can change not only the characteristics of its dimensions, but you can also change the texture. For example, it can be blocks, or it may be frosted, or it may be, for example, teeny lens. I like teeny lens. I will just make it bigger. I set such settings. And I'll press OK. And look, when our layer is converted into a smart object, we see below all the information about the filters we have caused. And we can turn off this filter at any time. Secondly, a gallery of filters is right here. It means that the filter is applied from the filter gallery. And you can click on it. The filter will open again, and you can change the settings. For example, I could put some other settings here. Let's leave it as it was. In addition, we have a mask here, by selecting which you can work on it with a brush and, for example, remove the filter actions on some parts of your image. Well, you can of course restore it in the same way. You can clean up somewhere, restore everything as usual somewhere. At the same time, you can return to each of these filters and change its settings individually. This is how smart objects work in relation to filters. Well, as I said, this is not their only task. And let's get back to our filters. As we have already seen, there are only 3 filters from the distortion group in the filter gallery. But in fact, there are more of them. If we go to the filter and select Distort, then we can see that there are a lot of filters here. Using these filters, you can make various interesting effects. In particular, you can make very interesting textures. Let's also convert it into a smart object. Convert to a smart object, filter, distort, and apply. Here you see a bunch of all sorts of settings that you can move at your discretion. And you'll have, for example, such an interesting texture. We can close it now and apply some other filter. For example, filter, distort, zigzag. And here we have a completely different picture. We create some compositions like this that can be different. Wherever you like. Well, we click OK. Let's take, for example, ocean ripples. But now it's already being applied on top of the filter that we have, because I haven't turned off an eye. And look, what an interesting effect. What kind of artistic picture have you got? We'll not use everything in a row. Then you'll choose what you like best and apply the filter that you found most interesting. Well, here you can still look at the example of this image. For example, like this. And the rest of the effects are better to look on the examples of different pictures. Let's move on to them. Here we have such an emotional woman, which we'll work on now. Here I want to draw your attention to the fact that filters can be applied not only to the whole layer, but also to selected areas. And in this case, the filter action applies only to the selected area. But when using the selected areas, you cannot apply smart objects. Let's take the selected area and draw something like that. Now I go into the filter, Distort, and I choose Pinch. And so, let's reduce our picture, so that we can see how the selected area will change. Look, it can be compressed inwards. Or it can be made like this, removing the selection. And now, for example, I want to do something with eyes. I will draw another selected area, like that, and go into the Distort Pinch filter. So, let's make it so that we can see. And let's try, on the contrary, to do something like this. That is, the actions are the opposite. And that's a caricature. It would be possible to have both, the face and the whole thing enlarged now. That is, like this. Such a creepy picture turned out, of course. If we compare it with what we had, there was this. Pinch filter is also similar to the spherize filter. Draw something like this. Let's try it. And we'll choose a distort, filter, spherize, and it's working differently here. But it's also cool. So, that is, you can either push the image forward with such a ball, such a lens, or conversely, dipping it back. Well, let's focus on something in the middle. And we move on to the next example. Consider the following filter from this group. It is called shear. Filter distort shear. And if we move this line here, then you can see on the preview how our image can change. Depending on how we bend this line, we can distort our image. It can be quite interesting sometimes, but we'll do it a little differently. We'll not distort the entire image, but we'll distort it through channels. Therefore, we'll cancel the distortion for now. Go into the channels and choose the red channel. Filter, distort, shear, and slightly distort the red channel. For example, like this. Not much. Let's see what we have got. You see, we got such an interesting displays. In principle, this can be done with all channels. This is the effect we got. For example, we can take the green channel and also apply a pinch filter, a shear, and distort it. Well, maybe a little more. Okay, let's see what we have got. Like this. Well, somehow it seems to me it was better without green. So we will leave it as it is. That's how you can get an interesting glitch effect. At the same time, you can edit, of course, some other filters to this image from above and get something else interesting. Surely, you have seen this kind of image, and it might seem that this is the result of a lot of work. But in fact, this effect is achieved quite simply. Let's try to do something similar now. Let's take this panorama of the city and see how the polar coordinates filter works. Filter, distort, polar coordinates. First, I will do it right as it is, in order to make it clear how it works. And look what happens if we apply the filter as it is presented by the software. That is, the image is folded inwards, and it forms such a circle, according to the proportions of the picture itself. In our case, it turned out to be an ellipse. And if we want to get the effect with a building outside, and we have a circle inside, then the picture should be square, and the buildings should be located upside down. Let's put it simply. Let's cancel everything and make the picture square first. Go into image, image size, or press Alt plus Shift plus Ctrl plus I. And now we'll make sure that the height and width are the same. We'll reduce the width. We'll make it the same as the height. And if we don't have a lock here, then, as you remember, the second value doesn't change. Click OK, and we have a square. After unlocking the layer, press the keyboard shortcut Ctrl plus T. Click the right mouse button and select Flip vertically. Press Enter. And now we can calmly apply our polar coordinates filter. By the way, we can enlarge our planet. Of course, this part, which is represented here by water, should be bigger. Click OK. And we get this picture. And here, of course, we can somehow modify the sky, edit some other objects. Well, I think that with this, if you wish, you can quite cope on your own. Just in case, I will show you this picture again. You see, here we have such a big earth inside. This could be done by adding an area of water in our picture, and so we got this. But it's also interesting, I think. Or you can delete, put another. In general, there is a place to run wild here. Well, I think there are quite enough examples for today. Let's remember what we reviewed today and talk about homework. So, you can apply the filter or the glass at your discretion and use it, for example in this picture, or take some of your own. And don't forget to use the smart object. The second task is to take this texture and create some of your own based on it. Well, something like I showed you, or maybe you come up with some unique combination of filters. Task number 3, task number 4 is a glitch effect, and task number 5 is the creation of such a planet from the panorama of the city. And we'll talk about filters for a long time. And that's it for today. It was Peter Romanov and AIM School. See you next time.